The orbital hospital floated like a jewel above the mining colony of Halvarus, its glass panels gleaming against a black sea of space. Inside, the surgical bay hummed with machines so advanced they bordered on magic. Vats of regrowth serum, stasis pods, bone-weaving lasers. It was here in one of the lowest wings of the hospital that a miracle and a secret was quietly unfolding. Yarrick Marrow didn't belong there. He was just a janitor. His official title was sanitation engineer, but everyone knew what that meant. Sweeping corridors, scrubbing spills, disposing of medical waste. He was invisible. Doctors didn't see him. Nurses stepped around him, and patients never remembered him. That was exactly why he noticed things others didn't. On his midnight shift, he pushed his mop cart past a restricted ward and saw the glow under the door. The plaque read, Tissue Regeneration Lab, authorized personnel only. Normally, he'd keep walking, but tonight, the door hissed slightly ajar. Inside, he glimpsed a chamber filled with liquid light. A single hand floated in a containment pod. Its fingers curled like it still remembered grasping something. Wires ran into it, nanites crawling across the surface, rebuilding tissue strand by strand. Yarrick blinked. What in the void? He knew enough biology to understand. Someone was being rebuilt from just a hand. Weeks passed. Yarrick tried to put out his mind, but curiosity gnawed at him. Each night, the hand grew more. First, a wrist and forearm formed, then a shoulder, then the faint beginnings of a torso. The machines worked tirelessly, reassembling bones, muscles, organs, skin, growing an entire person from fragments. He shouldn't have been there, but he found himself lingering after cleaning just to watch. He wondered who she had been. A soldier? A princess? A scientist? He didn't know why he thought she. Maybe it was the delicate fingers or the elegant curve of the forming arm. By the second month, there was no doubt. A woman floated in the pod now, suspended in glowing fluid. Her body was tall, lithe, strangely perfect. Her skin shimmered faintly, a soft violet hue that caught the light. Faint bioluminescent lines ran across her arms and neck, like constellations tattooed into flesh. Her hair, still forming, drifted around her like strands of silver mist. She was beautiful, otherworldly, fragile, and powerful all at once. Yarrick cleaned floors and emptied waste bins, but each night he came back to look at her. He talked, too, though he knew she couldn't hear him. Don't know who you are, he whispered once. But you're not alone, okay? Someone's here. The day she opened her eyes, Yarrick nearly dropped his mop. He had been leaning against the wall, staring into the pod as usual, when her eyelids fluttered. Two luminous eyes, deep as amethyst, glowing faintly, blinked open. For the first time, her gaze wasn't blank. It focused. On him. Yarrick froze. He looked around, expecting a doctor or nurse, but no one else was there, only him. Her lips parted, releasing a stream of soft, melodic syllables he didn't understand. Her voice carried like a song underwater. I don't, Yarrick stammered. I'm just a janitor. I don't know your language. But she didn't look confused. She looked relieved, as if, after all that darkness and regrowth, the first face she saw being a human janitor somehow mattered. The doctors soon swarmed the lab, marveling at her successful regeneration. They spoke in hushed tones. She was the last survivor of the Veari. We recovered only her hand after the attack. She must not remember the war. Yarrick kept his head down, pretending to mop, but he absorbed every word. Veari, a species thought extinct after a brutal genocide. The Syndicate had burned their homeworlds, and the galaxy believed none survived. Yet here she was, grown anew from a fragment, her body whole again. They called her Liara. Recovery was slow. She had to relearn movement, speech, the simple act of walking. The doctors ran endless tests, but they treated her like a specimen, not a person. Yarrick noticed the difference. The cold, clinical way they measured her progress, compared to the warmth in her eyes when she looked at him. One evening, As he emptied bins in her chamber, Liara struggled with a bowl of food. Her hands, still trembling, spilled broth across the sheets. The doctor sighed and made notes before leaving. Yarrick quietly stepped forward. "Here, let me help." He knelt, cleaned the spill, and steadied the spoon in her hand. She blinked at him, then gave a faint smile. "Yarrick," he said softly, touching his chest. "I'm Yarrick." She tilted her head. "Jarek." Her voice was hesitant, but clear. It was the first human word she spoke. Days turned to weeks. Yarrick became her anchor. He sneaked her little comforts, an extra blanket, a music player, stories about the station outside. She, in turn, taught him fragments of her language, gestures of her people, and once shyly she sang. Her voice was unlike anything he'd heard, haunting, beautiful, carrying sorrow and hope in every note. It echoed in the sterile halls, transforming them into something sacred. "You shouldn't waste your time here," one nurse told Yarrick once. "She's not yours. She's a relic, a project. Leave her be." But Yarrick ignored them. To him, Liara wasn't a project. She was someone who had been broken and rebuilt, someone who deserved more than to be studied like a curiosity. And he knew, deep down, that he couldn't walk away. One night, alarms blared. Yarrick rushed from his janitor's closet to see red lights flashing across the restricted wing. Voices shouted, "They've found her." The syndicate knows she survived. Through the chaos, Yarrick pieced it together. The syndicate, the same monsters who annihilated the Veari, had learned that Liara had been rebuilt. They weren't coming to reclaim her. They were coming to erase her. Soldiers stormed the ward, weapons ready. Doctors panicked, scattering like frightened birds. Liara sat frozen on her bed, eyes wide with terror. Yarrick didn't think. He acted. "Liara!" he shouted, rushing to her. "We have to go." She reached for him instinctively. He grabbed her hand, the same hand that had started all this, and pulled her out of the room. Blaster fire lit the halls. Yarrick ducked, dragging her behind cleaning carts and overturned tables. He was a soldier. He had no weapon, but he knew the station's back corridors better than anyone. Janitors always did, through maintenance shafts and access ladders. He led her away from the gunfire. She stumbled, weak but determined, her glowing eyes locked on him. "Trust me," Yarrick whispered, helping her crawl through a vent. "I'll get you out." They burst into the docking bay, alarms still wailing. Syndicate soldiers closed in from every side. Jarrick's heart pounded. Then Liara did something he had never seen before. Her bioluminescent lines flared. She raised her hands, and a wave of shimmering energy exploded outward. The syndicate soldiers were hurled back like rag dolls, weapons clattering to the floor. Yarrick stared, stunned. You're powerful." Liara swayed, nearly collapsing. He caught her. "Not without cost," she whispered weakly. He half carried her onto a supply shuttle. With trembling fingers, he sealed the hatch and launched. The ship roared free from the station, slipping into the star-specked void. For the first time since she had opened her eyes, they were alone together, safe, at least for the moment. Liara leaned against him, exhausted but alive. "You saved me," she said haltingly, her voice still learning human words. Yarrick shook his head. "No, you saved yourself. I just kept the floor clean." She smiled faintly at that, her glowing eyes softening. She touched his face gently, tracing the line of his jaw with the hand that had begun it all. "The first face I saw," she whispered. "The face I trust." Yarrick swallowed hard, his chest tight. He had never been anyone important. Never a hero. Never a warrior. Just a janitor. But to her, he was the first face. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. They didn't know where they were going. The syndicate would chase them. The galaxy would see her as a prize or a weapon. But as the stars stretched into lines, Yarrick knew one thing for certain. From a single hand, a life had been rebuilt. And from that life, a bond had been born. He would protect her, not because it was his duty, but because, for the first time in his life, he had something worth protecting. Someone who looked at him, not as a janitor, but as the first face in her new world.